What's going on? Welcome to KZ1023's Community Beat, a new podcast hosted by myself, Ross Martinez. Each episode, we take a deep dive look into members of our community, the accomplishments, the trauma, the mentors, all of it. I hope this brings light to all the great things going on in our community. Yes, at times it may be difficult to hear, and some episodes will have some spicy language, but please don't be deterred. There's so much beauty in our stories. All right, let's get to KZ's Community Beat. Thank you for listening.
And if it doesn't include education, caring for the poor, caring for the imprisoned, or caring for the elderly, I'm not doing it.
All right, welcome in to another episode of KZ1023's Community Beat. I'm Ross Martinez, your host. Welcome in, and finally, I'm so excited. The lady we've been talking about for, 6, 7 episodes?
Oh, wow.
Everybody I've talked to is, you need to talk to Heddy. You need to talk to Heddy. Heddy's awesome. Heddy's the one. She's amazing. So finally, we have you here. The pressure's here on you, Heddy.
There's pressure.
Heddy Elliot from the Moonlight Program and so many more other things. We'll get into them all. Okay. But how are you feeling today?
I feel good. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. All right, let's do this. I'm going to close the laptop. We're going to go authentic as possible.
Okay.
Heddy, why do so many people say so many great things about you?
You know, I don't know, but that's what a blessing, right?
Yeah.
What a blessing to have that reputation.
When you think about it, it's your good work that other people see in you. Like I've heard from Kendall Johnson, he kept saying you're authentic. Oh. You have a big heart. Becky couldn't stop praising you. DeMario Boone, oh my God, he was singing your praises left and right. Carl Holloway also. Oh. A lot of different names. So what type of things do you do for the community?
It's complicated.
We were talking off mic. You're like, well, there's so much to talk about, Ross.
So where would you like to start? From how I got here, or what I do now? What
makes you so passionate about things you do?
You know, I think I, inherited my passion through my family, through my dad. Growing up, everybody knew my dad. Okay, my dad had a way with words, and he knew how to, with his words, draw people in instead of push them away. You know, so every time he saw somebody, he had something nice to say about him. Oh, yeah, you know. Oh, have you been working out, Ross?
That's a lie. That is a lie. You just met me. You don't know. All right, we're trying to get back there, Eddie. I'll take the gas.
So he always had that way where he would, draw people in with his words and be positive. And I think it's just something that I kind of picked up on and knew how to talk to people and talk to children. And I would say that's how it all started, just having the influence of my parents and accepting everybody and treating everybody with kindness. It's.
So what would you say really stuck out about it? Like, what would you see or feel as your father was just spreading kind joy to people? Like, how did that make you feel from an early age?
Well, so I have all brothers, and my dad used to play basketball and racquetball down at the YMCA, which is now the Dream Center.
Oh, I visited once. It's nice.
So my dad would go down there and he would talk to all of these kids and teenagers, and he would call them the Y friends. He didn't know anybody's name. And then all of these kids would be running around our house, or teenagers. None of us knew what any of their names were. We just called them the Y friends. Oh, the Y friends are here.
What's up, friends? Welcome in.
And my dad would say, oh, the Y friends are coming over tomorrow. And all these kids are running around our house, and my mom's cooking for them. And then at Christmas, my dad would buy all the Y friends Christmas gifts, and that's just how he was. We didn't even really know who these people were who were running around our house. We didn't really care.
They were just there.
Yeah, we were so used to it. And I remember I was teaching third grade at Garfield, and probably 15 years ago. And it was the grandfather of my student. We were talking during parent conference. He was raising his grandson. And he said, I have a really strange question. He said, what's your dad's name? I said, Royce Elliott. He says, I'm a Y friend. And I'm like, oh
It's like your own fraternal order right here.
Right.
Just everybody under the white friend. Right. But you don't know why.
Right.
So this type of camaraderie that your father is building among the community, did you get a sense of pride seeing this, or was it just like warm feel like a community?
Yeah, I think, I was so young, and I had older brothers who were into sports, and everyone was always at our house. And my dad was sponsoring everybody, paying for T-shirts, sponsoring sports teams, paying for lunches, anything that kids wanted to be involved in. My parents were all in, whether they knew them or not. And I didn't understand it until probably even well into adulthood, when people say, well, how do you, do what you do? How do, why did the kids behave for you? And I really don't know. I don't really have an answer. But as I've gotten older and self-reflected, it was something that my parents taught and I naturally picked up on. And I think that says it all, really.
Well, I feel like a lot of community members have already said that you fulfill that in a way, that you instill a lot of confidence, not just through education, but self-worth in the children that you teach. Like, how does that sound hearing other people speak about you in such a high regard? Like, almost as high as you had your father, if not even higher.
It's really humbling. I always try to operate underground, and you had to, almost stalk me. You did stalk me, Ross. I'm going to say you stalked me.
Heddy, I'm going to tell you right now. I texted you 3 times. I called you about 5 times. I've left you God know how many emails, voicemails. And I, for those that don't know or not aware, this is how we finally got in contact, because this is a great story. I was doing my show on KZ 102.3. And I just said, you know what? That's it. I'm calling this woman out. Somebody let God handle this. I'm like, hey, what's going on? The all new KZ 102.3. If you know Heddy Elliot, I've been tracking this woman down for God knows how long. I want to talk to her. And she does amazing for the community. And then within 2 hours, Kendall Johnson gives me a call. Hey, brother, how's it going? We got Heddy things. She'll give you a call tonight. I said, what? How did that feel? You said a lot of people were hitting you up.
Oh, my gosh. Everybody and their mom sending me texts and posting it on my timeline on Facebook. I thought, what is happening? I'm at work, and it's like everybody's like, you're getting called out on the radio. I am? What?
Yes.
What's happening?
Yes. You've earned the right to be called out in a positive way, Heddy. I mean, let's talk about your good work that you do with the kids. So what type of things do you do at the Moonlight?
Well, actually, I have 2 jobs. So 2 full-time jobs and love it. So during the day, I run an alternative program at Lincoln School through Peoria Public Schools. And I'm the only one in the school district who does it.
Oh, wow.
And it's all boys, kids who've had it a little bit rough or maybe have gotten in some trouble, whether they were incarcerated or expelled or they're fighters, or a couple of them are just maybe more socially, they need a smaller setting. Not so much they've been in trouble, just the big, switching classes and hundreds of students is too much for them.
Do they have like a lot of trauma that they've experienced to the point that you've got into start helping them?
Yes. So I've always taught young kids, and I've taught GED at night my whole career since I was a first-year teacher. Yeah. I started teaching at the old Harrison, which is about to be demolished. Oh. And at nighttime, I taught at the county jail. And so I've always done, during the day, children, and at night adults. And I never really could choose because I loved both arenas so much. 25 years later, I still haven't chosen one over the other. So
it has a grab on you, huh?
Yeah.
And why does it have such a grab on you? 25 years. That means it's in you.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't just the profession or career. This is a way of life for you now.
Yeah.
Like, why has it got such a grab on you?
I think, I just gain a lot of inspiration from the students. Mm. And, I have teach a lot of students who have been through, to hell and back.
Yeah.
And they still are trying to make their way. And so I think it's inspiring to see people persevere and never give up. And through my Christian faith, I think, yeah, that's what, this is my calling on earth, is to make sure that people have the support to keep moving forward. Yeah. And so, yeah, I just love it.
So let's talk about during the day. This is your Clark Kent moment. Mm-hmm. So what's going on? What are you doing? What type of things are you teaching the children right in the day?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I teach 7th and 8th graders, all boys, and I actually talked to my principal and advocated for all boys. I said, the boys are the ones going to prison and getting killed. Teenage boys. These are teenage boys, and they're the ones who, need a lot more direction. They need a permanent kind of person that, instead of switching classes where you don't really get to know the teacher, having one teacher all day, you have a lot more support. And you get to know the others in your class because you're with them all day.
Provide consistency.
Right. And you know the teacher. So, in a sense, I become like their school mom. So they trust me. They feel like I can make everything okay. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. But they know, that they can come to me for anything. And I tell them that too. I'm really honest with the kids. If it's late at night, you need a ride and you're walking somewhere where you think it's dangerous, you call me. I'm not going to be happy about getting up and taking you somewhere, but I have to make sure you're safe, and I make sure all of the kids know that I'm always there for you, like your own mom.
Yeah.
I'll be there for you. So I think, that, after 25 years, you can't walk away from that. The kids rely on you. The students who I have are able to stay with me for 2 years if their parents want them to. And I teach every subject. So I teach, I taught American history at one point in my career, and I teach history, science, social, or math. I was taught math to adults before. I've taught writing and English at the college level. So I teach the kids every subject. It's self-contained, and I have to say I'm the worst gym teacher probably in the city. Okay, choices today are basketball or basketball.
This is what we got, the resources we have. If you want more, tell the community.
Right.
Hint, cough. Let me ask you this. What do you feel more empowered when you're teaching? The curriculum, the everyday stuff, the knowledge, or the empowerment? Because you're teaching both.
Right. So the key is, and I talk to young teachers, new teachers, you can know curriculum backwards and forwards. You can know subject matter backwards and forwards, but it won't matter if you can't reach the kids.
Yeah.
Why does that matter? So you really have to get the kids in a place where they're calm, they're comfortable, they're trusting. And as soon as you can establish that, the learning just comes naturally. They want to learn. They want to learn because they know that I have an expectation that they will learn. And so it's once you can calm the behaviors down, and I think that really helps being in one classroom. There's not a lot of movement. If we have something that's really interesting that the students find interesting, it can, because they don't have to switch classes, we can continue that conversation or, stay on one subject a little bit longer for that day.
Yeah.
All of that kind of stuff really helps the atmosphere of learning,
So it's like you're building trust.
Right.
So in what ways do you build trust with the students? Because like we said, every person is different. Everybody has different baggage, trauma.
Right.
So in a communal sense, how do you gain the trust of the class?
Well, I look nice, probably. Like I'm a really nice person.
You have a good spirit to you, I'm not going to lie.
But I am tough, and I have high expectations. And I'm very organized in the classroom, and to the point where if you came in, it almost runs like a Catholic school. You know, the kids are, you know, sitting there, you know, sit up straight, you know, don't slouch down, sit up straight, you know, eyes on the speaker, you know, and I repeat that all the time. You know, I need to know that you are learning, and I need to know that you're interested in learning. And slouching down in your chair or having your hood on. There you go, Ross.
So, it was innate. I'm a student. I was like, yes, Ms. Elliot, I appreciate it.
But, you know, at some point, the kids have pride in that. So if we have a kid who transfers in, or when we get a new kid, they almost feel good about what they already know. And no, Miss Elliott's not going to let you cuss. Oh, you better not do that. Miss Elliot won't won't allow that. They know the rules. They know my expectations, and they're happy to make me happy, I think.
So building structure.
Yeah.
That's what you do. So you build the structure, which improves the foundation, and it leads to them trusting your guidance in a way. That's interesting. I like that.
The other thing I believe that I'm good at, a lot of these kids are really rough, and they've seen a lot, in their life. And I bring them back to being a little kid. So if you come in my room, it's vibrant. You know, my bulletin boards have snowflakes, and, you know, it's colorful. I bring in hot chocolate and let them put all of the toppings on it so they can drink hot chocolate as we're reading. All of those things to remind them, you're just a kid, you know, and, you know, maybe you're 6 feet tall, maybe you're 300 pounds, maybe, you know, you have long hair and people don't like that or judge you in some kind of way, or whatever it is, or, you know, maybe the area of town you live in, you know, Taft Homes or Harrison Homes, or maybe people are judging you by whatever, you know, some false
preconceived notions.
Right.
So you're allowing them a safe space to not only figure out their character, but their foundation, and also express themselves mentally and emotionally with some guidance and structure.
Yeah.
So it's like you're creating this positive role model in their life of consistency, which allows them to look inwards, like, okay, wait, no, I can trust my heart with this world. Wow, that's, you know, when it's broken down like that, it's very beautiful when you think about it.
Well, thank you.
Because it's like now, with the hope that they now go into the community with the self emperor inside, like, oh, no, I'm a good person.
Yeah.
Not whatever this world thinks of me. It's me inside.
Right.
So where'd you get that type of lesson plan from? Because I feel like that's either lived in, or that's at least somebody impacts you, like your father.
I think it was the Y Friends. I mean, it's the Y Friends. I mean, all of, you know, these kids running around our house, you know. My guess is back in the day, the Warner Homes was still up. My guess is a lot of these kids lived in the Warner Homes, and my dad didn't care. You're a kid. Yeah. You know, you're a kid. You come over to my house. You eat anything you want. You watch TV. You run up and down our stairs and play tag. Do whatever you want. You know, you're a Y friend. You know,
you're here. You're family.
Yeah.
Huh. How do you feel when you see a child that's lost, or that the world has gotten to, before you can instill something in them? I'm
a magnet to those kids, or they're a magnet to me, or we're a magnet to each other.
Really? It's
immediate.
You feel it, like you can sense it. It's like some people have this, what was Willie talking about? Discernment, where you could see someone, you could read them or feel them emotionally, empathetic, right? So you have that innate characteristic about you where you can just feel like, oh, they need some loving.
You know, I have really good instinct, and in another podcast we can talk about Latin America and my travels and all of that.
Did you just agree to the second episode with me? Yes!
So I think I have good instincts. So I travel a lot by myself to dangerous countries. I taught inmates, and I think I just have a good instinct. And every once in a while, I never wanted to know why inmates were, why they were in front of me. My job was to be a teacher, and I'm not there to police you or
your past doesn't matter.
Yeah, so I'm just here as a teacher. That's my role. So I never wanted to know. And sometimes you'd see on TV or you'd read in the paper, and so I would know what they've done. But I never wanted to know. But occasionally someone would come in my class, and I had a bad feeling, and they didn't do anything to me. They didn't say anything. It was just a feeling I had. So I always trusted my instinct, because it's so rare that when it does happen, I feel like
trust your gut.
Yeah.
So your gut's taking down 25 years of helping out the youth and the adults. So we're talking about the kids right now and everything that you're instilling in them. Was there any standout children to you in the 25 years that you're like, ooh, they took it, they ran with it, and now they're doing something with it? Ooh, you lit up.
Okay, there's a couple.
Okay.
My most tragic is probably too fresh for me to get into without crying.
Yeah, no worries.
He was just an amazing kid, and I had him when he was in 7th grade. His mother was murdered when he was little, and so he's really, when I had him at first, really a bitter kid, mean, a fighter, wasn't a real fan of school or a fan of anybody telling him what to do.
He was hurt.
So just in the beginning, we bumped heads, and I just ended up loving this kid. So we just always kind of stayed in contact with each other. And when COVID hit, he kind of got messed up on his his credits for high school. He made it to senior year, and so he called me, Miss Elliot. I got messed up last semester. I need to get enrolled in school. And I remember it was in July, a couple years ago. And I said, sure. What do you want? I can, Mr. Thomas, who runs the alternative high school, I said, he's actually in session, so we could run up there and talk to him, and then he can kind of give us some guidance. So we went up there, talked to Mr. Thomas, got him back enrolled in high school. He ended up finishing his senior year. He got a job working at a local not-for-profit and was doing really well. We ended up getting his driver's license. He wanted to drive my new Lexus. I told him he could drive my Toyota. His sister ended up letting him drive her car, but got him to all of his paperwork in to be an apprentice in the Carpenters Union, and he was supposed to start July 5th, and unfortunately he was shot to death on July 4th of this past summer. So, yeah.
I did not know that story was going to take that turn out there, right there.
So,
how's that been with everybody? Because you said it's still tough.
It's tough. I mean, this kid was like my son, and we, last September, which not this, he had passed this September, but it would be 2021, September of 2021, he and I rappelled down the Pier Marquette for charity. Oh. Yep. We climbed down to 17 floors, and, it's just in retrospect, I know all of this time with him was a gift to me from God, and all of those things were supposed to happen in his short lifetime. And so, yeah, it's...
Not to pry too much, and you can tell me to stop, but I'm a very inquisitive person. I'm sensing raw emotion here. I'm like, okay, have you processed the positive or the lesson that you were supposed to get from that? Because everything we go through, I'm a man of God. Born and raised Catholic, altar boy. Yeah. I pride myself to hit that cross all the way up as high as possible, Heddy. I'm like, feel him. Like, have you processed the lesson you're supposed to get from that relationship yet?
I'm trying, because it was, it was like I lost my own child, and...
that's a sad reality of what you're going through. Yeah. You'll have some success stories, but then you'll have some like these. And what do you wish the community knew about events like this?
Well, I mean... in this particular, this is 25 years of it. I mean, this is not the first, and unfortunately, he won't be the last. I mean, it's the harsh reality of, I guess I could teach somewhere else and teach in an environment that I wouldn't have so much, and have so much heartache over it, but. What a kid. Who else is going to rappel down a building? I mean, a teenager for charity.
From where he came from.
And...
Maybe it's to teach you that there's a lot of good in people's hearts.
Yeah.
And no matter through the trauma that they've been through, they're still good.
Yep.
And that you have a skill set that you could get to it. Because look what you're able to take them through.
Yeah.
That's a memory you take.
Yeah.
Now, on the flip, do you have any success stories that are still...
Oh, yes.
Let's talk about them. Let's get out this emotion right now. I want to bring the smile back because with the podcast that we're trying to do, I'm trying to find stories, uncover the reality of what's going on in our community, not just what we put on the TV or talk about on the radio or, oh, my God, this person has the whatever. Yeah. No, but there's people that have been through the horribles of the world. Yeah. So tell me about those.
So I would say she was in my second year of teaching. I had her in third grade at the old Harrison School. Tough home. There was a lot of abuse. She, if you went to Harrison at that time, no one had any money. The Harrison homes used to be probably 4 times as big, probably even bigger than that. It was several blocks. So all of the kids who went to Harrison, almost all of them lived in Harrison homes. And this girl was just the sweetest girl I've ever met from the very beginning. And I didn't have kids at the time, so she really became my daughter. I did everything with her. She ended up staying in Peoria until 7th or 8th grade, and she moved to Wisconsin. But throughout her years, I've always given her a Christmas present. When I travel, I've always bought her gifts from Latin America or wherever I go, just like you would do for your own kids, little souvenirs. She ended up moving to Wisconsin. Her mom moved up there to give the kids a shot in life.
A change of scenery.
Right. And she ended up graduating high school, graduating college.
Nice.
She's working on her master's degree right now. She works for the police department in Texas. She is the first African-American female to own her own drone business. And she's the only African-American and the only female who flies drones into crime scenes if it's too dangerous to send people in.
Really?
She's called to fly the drone in to take pictures of what's going on. She's just an amazing person.
Yeah.
And she ended up traveling to Latin America after she graduated from college. And she went down there and did some volunteer service. And she said, oh, you have to talk to my mom. My mom is so afraid of me going to Latin America, you have to talk to my mom. And I said, you know what? I was there, Lakeisha, with my dad. My dad did not want me to go, like, you need to go to Cuba to study Spanish. No, go out to the Barnes & Noble and buy a Spanish book. You don't need to be going to...
Inglés sin barreras.
You don't need to go to a communist country to learn Spanish. I said, I've been there. So she is an incredible young lady, and I got a phone call from her in maybe end of October, and I answered the phone, and we text a lot, and we don't call often. And so when I saw the phone ringing, I immediately thought something might be wrong. I pick up the phone, and she said, Mom, I got engaged. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So just an incredible person. Yeah. When she came to Peoria for the birth of both of my daughters. She lived in Peoria when my first daughter was born. When my second daughter was born, she was in Wisconsin. Her mom drove her to Peoria, and she stayed a week with me and watched my oldest daughter, while I was in the hospital. She, when my father died, she came down for a week and watched my kids while I was making all of the arrangements and everything. I remember she was probably a sophomore in high school, and she lived in Wisconsin. And I get a knock at my door. She's there with her mom. They drove down to Peoria to give me a dozen roses and show up on my doorstep on Mother's Day. And I'm like, hey, who does this? So
people you impact, that's who.
Really cool people. There's some really cool people doing some really good things. And so if you have the mentality that economics or whatever is, the barrier, you're dead wrong, because a lot of the students that I've taught over the years have done some really incredible things, and
have elevated their lives.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, we've seen, this is the perfect example of the yin and yang to what you do, the good and the bad, but you still have to find the good in it, and you still have to be aware of the bad and the good.
Right.
How have you kept your heart from not getting hardened with all the sorrow? Let's be honest, because you've seen a lot of bad. You've experienced it, you've lost, but then you do have the good. Yeah. Look at this, Lakeisha, right?
Yep.
Like, oh my God, this is a great story.
I know.
From everything. But how do you prevent that?
It's not always easy. And this summer, I actually went into my principal and I said, I think I need to take a semester or the year off. I'm really having a hard time. I'm trying not to cry, because I'm not a crier at all.
It's a safe space.
And he said, he's a great person and a great boss and a great friend. And he said, I get it, but I've known you a long time, Heddy, and what's going to get you out of this space is being with children. That's what you love. That's your passion. That's your life. And to be at home without all of these kids running around, that's not you. And that's just... He offered that as his advice. I don't think that's going to help you, with your grieving. You need to be around kids, and you need to feel like you're making a difference. So
seeing the smiley faces, the light bulb. Take me through this moment, because I feel like I've talked to a lot of teachers. My sister's a teacher. They always talk about this light bulb moment, like when a kid gets something that you get. Take me through that. Yeah. Because I feel like that might be a little bit of what he's talking about. I had a moment, like I was at my mom's house earlier today, and I was telling my mom this story because we were wrapping my students' Christmas presents. And so as we're wrapping, I was writing the tag for one of them, and this kid's a handful. I mean, he just is. I've had him for 2 years, and he's still a handful. And I've had his brother for 2 years, and he was a handful. But I love the family. I know the family really, really well. And, tough family, tough extended family. And I'm telling a story about why I
believe in Santa. So I was telling them the story, which is a true story, but that's for our third time together.
All I had to do was call you on the radio, and I got 3 pounds worthy. You know what? I need to do it more often.
So under his breath, he says, so I'm telling this story about this older man 20 years ago that I helped, and then this strange incident happened afterwards. And so part of the story is there was an older man, and he lost his wallet, and we're at a gas station, and it's bitter cold, like below zero out. And he was much older, maybe in his 90s. He was shaking because he couldn't find his money, and everybody in the gas station is stomping their foot and, huffing and puffing. And I felt so terrible that I cut the line, and I said that I would pay for the gentleman and for my gas.
Yeah.
And as I'm telling the story, this really rough kid says, he laughs and he says, Miss Elliot is so charitable. And that was kind of the light bulb moment, like, that's not his MO. But it's neat that he starts to understand people who are, what people are all about, or what, just a different...
Out of his own perspective.
Right.
He's now taking the world, instead of viewing the world through his lenses, he's now taking people for what they are.
Yeah.
Oh, he's going through a hard time. Miss Elliot's always there.
Yeah.
All right, maybe I shouldn't be as judgmental.
Yeah. And it was just so neat to hear him as he's a wild man. I'm just wild as hell, And just to hear him say that, it's like, yeah, what a nice compliment. And just to hear him kind of process it and say it to himself, I thought, oh, that's...
Do you understand?
Yeah. And what a neat compliment that was.
Now, let me ask you this, Heddy. So we're talking about different children that have stand out in your career so far, or in this journey that you're on. What do you feel the community has misunderstood about the children that you help? Ooh, think about that one.
Yeah,
because there's a lot, I feel.
There's a whole lot, but I think... What I think, this is kind of my whole, overarching idea. There are so many people say it's race, so many people say it's economics, so many people say it's this, that, and the other. In my opinion, it's experience. It's lack of experience. It's not economics. It's not race. It's not this or that. It's experience. And what I try to do to the best of my ability with kids is to give them 1,000,001 experiences all packed into one school year. So let's get a van, let's go to the zoo, let's go to the museum, let's go to the bakery, let's go here, let's go there, let's go this, let's have hot chocolate in class, let's do, so pack all of the experiences in, so hopefully that at one point they start to level out with their middle-class peers. Because it's not all race and it's not all economics. It's experience. And
the opportunity to experience life.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And when you don't have a car, you live within about 6 to 8 blocks. I mean, that's just kind of the way it is. And it's the same way with my GED students. It's the same way with my young students. Their whole life is 6 to 8 blocks. And they're blamed for not knowing any better when they haven't experienced, they've experienced so little. That's all they know, which takes me back to my travels and my volunteer work in Latin America. It's the same idea, right? It's very poor communities in Latin America, and they live in a little village, and they only know the people in the village. They don't pay a lot of attention to politics and the world because they're living day to day, you know? And so it's kind of, you know, the same, you know, kind of the same experience.
How would you react to this statement? It's a person that was raised with love cannot understand a person that was raised to survive. Or is it very difficult for them to understand? Because they're both raised very differently. A person that was only raised to see love, experience love, and a person that was raised to survive day to day out, that may have not had that. It's difficult for them to see.
I don't know if it's that difficult.
Ooh, why is that?
Because I think it can change. And I think that's what life in the world is all about. My student who was killed was raised to survive. And the day of his graduation, his senior breakfast, I stood in as a parent because he didn't have a parent to go with him.
Sorry. It's okay. You're good. She's awesome.
She's so cute. So he was writing, we were coming home from the breakfast, and I said, oh, I forgot, I have a gift for you. I have a card for you. And he said, do you want me to open it now or later? And I said, oh, whatever you want to do, honey. So I dropped him off at home, and an hour or so later, he sent me a text, and it was a card with cash in it. And he says in his text, Miss Elliot, thank you so much. That was the most beautiful card that I've ever seen. No mention of the cash. So here's somebody who was, you know, raised or just to survive without, you know, a lot of love or guidance, and no mention of money, just of what was written in the card that was so meaningful to him. So I just think that he experienced a lot of love and, you know, from me, I guess. And it kind of changed his heart, where he was, you know, charitable, where he's going to risk his life really to climb down on the outside of a 17-story building. I mean, that's pretty risky for charity, you know, and I think, you know, it's really neat to see that can change. I believe it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I believe it changes.
I think you see a lot of good in the world, but there are some people who choose just to see the negative. They don't want to accept the yin to the yang.
Right.
They're just all one perspective. How do you feel we can, people that, or not, I'm not going to throw myself in this, but you and other community members, who have been, Kendall, DeMario, Becky, different people who are trying to get those that are looking outside in to understand the kids better. Because I feel like a lot of people don't understand kids. They put them in a box and...
Right.
Yeah.
So what I like to do on social media is to show all of this, the kids being kids, kids having fun, the kids with smiles on their faces, learning, my GED students proud of everything that they've done. But what I think I'm best at is modeling. So I model what I want, what I think is best for kids and adults, and modeling being a good community member and to be a charitable person and a kind person. All I can do is model that, and hope others follow. And if not, you know, I only have energy for those who are positive, and if you kind of have to balance that with the negativity. You kind of either have to shut it out, or that it can, you know, it's like a tide, you know, the tide pulling you under, you know. So you just kind of have to stay away from all of the positive or all of the negative. And
yeah. So you said you've had you try to set an example. So we talked about your father and the Y friends. Have there been other members in the community that have positively impacted you throughout your journeys that add to who Heddy Elliot is trying to be for the community?
Oh, yeah.
So take me through some of them.
Okay. My fourth grade teacher. I thought she was everything. I mean, I went home and wanted to be Mrs. Russell.
Mrs. Russell.
I wanted to do everything that she did because she was so inspirational.
How so?
She was just happy all the time. She was funny. She was engaging. She would play the piano and we would sing show tunes and,
Bette Midler?
5'2", Bill Bailey.
Little Oklahoma?
Yeah. And it was just so much fun. And she died at a very early age in her 40s. From breast cancer, and later on in my career, I won the Susie Russell,
bring it full circle.
Yeah, whatever it was, Excellence in Teaching Award, and so I was like, oh my gosh, that is huge. She was my idol. And so she was a great model for what I, and I was a little kid, and I remember so vividly everything that I did in her classroom. Even she kind of picked up on my love of geography. And I would always go to the library and all of the kids were, picking fictional books. And I was always over, looking at the different countries and places that I wanted to travel when I was older. So she would always give me extra geography work and map work. And I really feel like she inspired some of my later travels to different countries. So
instead of trying to fit you in a box, she's like, I know what you love. Yeah. Come on.
Yeah.
Do you do that with your kids now?
Oh, yeah. I mean, once I'm actually notorious for it. So once somebody says they're interested in something, I go way, way overboard and make sure.
That's interesting because, all right, let's break it down. Your father, big heart community. We see where it fits you. Now, Mrs. Russell pushes you for whatever you're passionate about, sets a good, consistent, positive image, a good foundation. That's what you're doing with the kids. So you have two big positive role models in your life that you're emulating now. Isn't that intriguing?
It
has to be.
It is.
I'm a big proponent that I feel the more positive role models we put, male, female, whatever, it instills us confidence in us to duplicate it. Because I'm like my father and my mom. Too hard-headed, hard-working, very passionate. My pops are subtle with sarcasm. My mom's in your face with positivity. That's who sums up Ross. So what other people do you feel that have impacted you so greatly? Because you do a lot.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's more to uncover.
So when at one point I ended up quitting my job for a few years. And I went to 3 different people in the community and asked for advice. And I said, this is what I'm thinking about doing. Can I sit with you? And you can either tell me it's a good idea, a bad idea, kick me in the face, whatever. I just need to know because I trust in what you do. And one of those people was Dr. John Carroll. And he runs Haitian Hearts. And so he quit his job as an ER doctor to only volunteer in Haiti. Really? And so left all of that money just to volunteer. And so when I was thinking of quitting, I only wanted to leave teaching for a short period of time, a few years, because I knew that my GED program, I was actually at that time doing it as a volunteer for many, many years. And I knew that that was nice to do it, but it wasn't sustainable. And if I wanted the program to be there long after me, I had to find some money and some resources and some employees, so it would be sustainable. I am a strong advocate for adult education. It's a very narrow field of education, so there's not a lot of resources out there. So if I wanted it to grow, I was going to have to raise some money to do it. And I thought the best way to fundraise would be to leave my job so I could figure this out full time for a few years. And that's what I did. And I went right to Dr. Carroll because I knew that's exactly what he did and got his advice. And he's just a fine human being, a humble person, so kind and so passionate about what he does. He's just I don't know, and he's tough. And he's a tough guy.
3 words I use to describe you. Tough, humble, passionate. Because it took what, 15, 20 minutes before I ever got you talking about anything that you're doing on the phone. I'm like, Heddy, what are you doing? I've heard so much. Well, I'm doing things, Ross. I'm like, all right. So let's talk about this. Let's flip it. Because we've talked about the prevention, getting the young kids, trying to instill them that confidence. That's amazing. But when you're more reactionary to what's happening with the Moonlight program, these are men that have been through a lot, have made decisions, coming back from it, owning up to, like Kendall Johnson. He told me he went through the Moonlight program with you?
He was at the county jail, actually.
Oh, he was there?
Yep.
He had a lot of good things to talk about when you were doing there.
Yeah. And so what he did was, after his incarceration, he was a volunteer.
Oh, yes. So let's talk about Moonlight program. How did that become a thing?
Okay. How much time do you have, Ross?
How much time do you have? Believe it or not, we're an hour in, but I'll break this apart if we have to, Heddy. I got you here. I know you're busy, and I'm going home for vacation, so let's talk about it.
Okay, so that's a story in itself. So, way back in the day, okay, it's the reason I avoided you for so long. and I did avoid you. I was like,
I'm busy, Ross. I knew it. I love great voice notes, Heddy. I know it. It was very professional. I put my good voice on for you.
I was like, there's so much. There's so much. It's just hard to even. So I think in my mind, there's so much going on. Like, when somebody says, "What do you do?" I'm a teacher. That's all I want. I don't want to say everything.
Teacher, mentor, community organizer, social empowerment, foundation of love. Yeah, I mean, I could start naming titles if you like.
So, if we back up again, when I was a first-year teacher, I left a few parts out of the other things I was doing. So, on purpose, actually.
Of course. It's like an onion. We're peeling layers, little by little. I ask a question like, well, now that you mention it. Hey,
for the listening audience, I'm on a couch here at WMBT. I'm in therapy.
This is a therapeutic session for what I've been told by DeMario. Shout out to him, friend of the show. So let's take us through it. Moonlight program. You're doing 35 things. Because let's be honest, you're doing a lot. But you're seeing the youth. So and you're seeing the good, the bad, the lost, the found. Let's take us through it.
So before the year before I started teaching with District 150, I was doing my student teaching in Peoria, and a friend of mine was doing the GED program for the Moonlight Basketball League. Okay. He's a friend of my oldest brother's. He actually is the same person who encouraged me to teach at the jail. And back up a little further, when there was an article about this guy when I was a senior in college. And it was on the front page of the paper, and he was the director of education at the county jail. And all about GED, it was really interesting article. So it was still when you had the house phone, and he called, and he was calling for my oldest brother, and I said, hey, I saw that that story about you in Sunday's paper, I said, that seems so cool. And I have never forgotten this, and he is a person who inspired me with this one phone call. Huh. He said, there's not very many people in this world who can do that job. He said, but you would be one of them, so you really need to think about applying to teach inmates when you graduate.
How do you pick that apart about you? Through one phone call?
Well, I mean, he's known me since I was a little kid. Okay. And I thought, wow, I've never thought about GED. And so I was student teaching. Same guy called me. He said, hey, I'm a volunteer in the Moonlight Basketball League. I have 4 kids. My wife is on my case, and how about you take it over? Would you be interested in volunteering for it? And I said, yeah, sure. But he didn't tell me it ran from 10 p.m. till 1 a.m. on Thursday nights. I'm like, I'm teaching in the middle of the night? Okay. So I took it on, and I loved it. It was the coolest program.
What was so cool about it? Like, what made you so passionate about it so quickly?
Well, because the students, they were, who's studying at midnight? Who's coming to class at midnight?
A young Ross that made bad decisions.
So it was so cool. So at the time, it was at the old Y, so I have a lot of connections with that building.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's...
I know. It's really, it's the way things were supposed to be. God knew what he was doing this whole time, And so it was at the old Y, and it started at 10 p.m., so the league played, there was a game 10 p.m., the next game was 11 p.m., next game was midnight. And so I would teach one group at 10, one group at 11, and another group at midnight before their 1 a.m. game.
Yeah, because you don't want them before they get all exhausted.
Yeah, right. So I would teach them for an hour before their game. So actually, the league went 10 p.m. till 2 a.m., but I taught 10 to 1 on Thursday nights. And I just really thought it was, the neatest program. Everybody in the league was a volunteer. No one was paid, including me. And I like that. I don't want money to do what I love to do. I mean, if I'm paid, if that's my profession, great. But all of the extras, I don't want money to do it. I want to just enjoy what I'm doing.
You need enough to get by, pay some bills, and not be in debt and do what you love to do.
Right.
Yeah, it's a blessing.
So I did that for many, many years, probably up to about 2012. So from the mid-90s to about 2012. And so the head of the league was in a bad accident. He's still with us, but he was in a really bad accident. And so the funding was through Budweiser, and at the time, the guy who started the league, one of the guys, was the president of Budweiser. So a lot of our money for the league kind of,
internally, yeah.
Yeah, so it was tough because then everybody else had to fundraise for the league and everything. And then the people were getting older. So I was 30 years younger than everybody else volunteering in the league when I started. So, people are like, we've done it long enough. So the league went away it just went away. And so I kept the Moonlight name because it really was inspired through Moonlight basketball. So I was teaching at Harrison, teaching 10 to 1 a.m. on Thursday nights, teaching at the county jail. And then I started teaching. This is before I was married or had kids. So I was teaching kind of everywhere. I taught at Moss Avenue, used to have an adult ed. I taught a program in Taft and Harrison Homes in the evenings. I would go Taft one night, Harrison the other night, and go back and forth. So I've taught GED everywhere. So the more I taught, the more I saw that there was a great need. And in Peoria, it's almost an epidemic. There's so many people who don't hold a high school diploma. I mean, it's at, an epidemic proportion.
36% is up there?
Yeah.
Wow.
So in 61605, the estimation is there's about 40% of the adults who don't hold a high school diploma, which 40%. Is 40%, which translates into thousands of people. Yeah. So there are lots of people who need it. And there's lots of people in Peoria County, not just in Peoria, but the rural counties kind of have the same issue. So I started to become really passionate about adult ed, very passionate about digging through all of the data to, is this my instinct or is this really a problem that I think I'm seeing? Yeah. So everywhere I would go, go in the drive-through when my kids were little, and the cashier would say, "Are you the lady who teaches GED?" Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I would be driving down, Griswold, and people, hey, she teaches GED. I'm like, what? Yeah. Okay. I would get phone calls from random people. Do you have red hair and teach GED? You're calling me. I mean, who do you think you're calling? What are you talking about?
The yellow pages.
So it's just very bizarre. And I'm not even exaggerating. All of this stuff would happen all of the time. And I thought, if this is happening all of the time, my instincts are true. There are a lot of people who need a GED. Yeah. And there's not a lot of resources. There's not a lot of money. And there's not a lot of teachers who do it.
And the word of mouth gets around.
Yeah. So what I did was I was at Proctor Center, where I actually went to nursery school at Proctor Center on the South End. So I was always around Proctor, and I started volunteering down there. And I would just, when inmates would get out of jail or people who would call me, I would say, yeah, just come down to Proctor and I'll meet you on Wednesday nights, 5 to 7. Okay, I'm not getting paid. I'm just, hustling books and paper and,
Consistency.
Yeah. So I would just always be there. And then at one point, it's like the Verizon commercial. People are just following me around everywhere I went, GED. Like, okay, guys, I can't do this. I have just, I have my own kids. I have a job, 5 of them. I can't do this. So.
But you got the support of the community at this point.
So I ended up.
How does that feel, though? Honestly. I hate to deter, but let's talk about that. You have the community support. Not just people in your circle, but people calling to figure out who you are.
No. That's really nice.
Yeah, right?
It's
validation that you're walking in your light. It has to be.
Yeah. I hope so. You always hope that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. I feel like I am, but...
Yeah, it seems like it.
Yeah.
So, all right, we have the community rallying behind you, like the moment of the Ali movie. You know what I mean? They're behind you. So, where we go from here?
So, I was at Proctor Center, and there's just, I was being a nice person, tutoring 1, 2, 3, then it was 5, 20, 30, 60, and I'm like, okay. 60. And I had to reevaluate what I'm doing. I'm a nice person, okay? But is this sustainable? And it's not. And at some point, I might be doing people a disservice because I can't do more than... they're expecting me to be here every week. Well, I'm a volunteer, and they're expecting me to have all of these books, and I'm just hustling to get them,
It'll get to you eventually.
And I'm like, maybe this is either I have to do one or the other. I'm going to have to find the money to make this a legitimate program, or I'm going to have to stop it altogether because I have high expectations for myself. And I knew at that point you can't keep up that pace forever, especially having kids and being married. You can't
Your social life,
Yep.
your personal
Yep.
life, your internal life,
Yep.
your communal life. It's a lot.
Yeah. So I had to step back and say, okay, this is the way it's going to be, all in or none at all. So I went to Dr. Carroll and a couple other community people, and I said, went to my oldest brother, who is a good businessman, and I said, went to my husband, told everybody I think I should quit my job for 3 years as a teacher, work only on fundraising for GED. After 3 years, I have a master's degree. If it doesn't work, I just go back to teaching. What's the worst that can happen? So some people said I was crazy, but I went to my key people, Dr. Carroll being one of them who quit his job, my brother being a good businessman, and a couple educational leaders in the community. Dr. Jerry Brookhart, who was at the time the regional superintendent, he said, you got the right idea, kid. You bring the school to the people. You don't expect the people to come to the school. Yeah. You're flipping the model, and that's what needs to be done. You're thinking out of the box. Go for it.
Yeah.
Went to Dr. Carroll. He told me his story. If it's not about money, he said, I could be living in a gigantic house on Grandview Drive, but I don't. I would rather do what I do in Haiti and live in this same small house that I've lived in my whole life and give all of my money and my time to those most in need instead of having all of this fancy stuff. So that kind of,
sustainable, not too much.
Yep.
Yeah.
So then my oldest brother said, in 3 years, you don't even know what your life is going to be like in 3 years. So having a 3-year plan, knowing if it doesn't work and you go back, it's doable.
Yeah.
My husband said, you don't pay any bills anyway, so what does it matter to me? He says, I don't know if you work or don't work because you don't add any money to the pot. So
what I add, you can't define, brother. You know what I mean?
So, I kind of touched all bases and I quit. So I quit for 3 years.
Did that pain you at all to walk away?
No, because I knew that if I didn't raise the money, that in my heart I was going to leave adult education. And that drove me to, and I knew that I would be back with kids someday. I said 3 years, I'm going back to traditional teaching whether it works or not. So I knew, just give me 3 years and I'll figure it out.
Small sacrifice for a big gain.
Yep. So... Okay. Long story short, I achieved my mission. So from the time I quit was probably about 2012, 2013 till now. We have probably raised $4 million for adult education for GED.
$4 million?
$4 million.
That's impressive.
I know.
That's a lot of fun.
Yes. And so now I have 28 employees. So I'm kind of just the figurehead now.
From where it was.
Yeah. It was
every Tuesday, Wednesday?
Yeah. And every time somebody went to get a GED, I had my hand out to my husband. Okay, we got to pay for another one. He's like, I don't even know these people. Why am I paying for
They're
it?
the Y friends.
Yeah.
Don't ask why.
Right. So we pay for everybody's GED. Everything is free. Everything we offer is free. That's what they did with Moonlight Basketball. They offered a free education. They bring the school to the people. So we kept that inspiration and kept the name. And everything is free. So you walk in anytime. I could have gotten money, lots of money, from different grants through the state and some other grants, but I could only receive it if I would run my program semester to semester. And I said, that's not good for the people. I'll just wait until my ship comes in because I'm not changing my mission. My mission is open enrollment. You can start tomorrow. You can start any day. You wake up and you feel like you want to get your GED. No one is going to be turned away. I don't care what reading level you're at. I don't care how many people come to our doors. There's not going to be a limit. If there's too many we can't afford, I'll find the volunteers. So we don't turn anyone away, and we don't take one dime from anybody, from any student. And
so why is it open enrollment? It's just because you would like them to
there's a real reason.
Yeah, hit me with this one.
So open enrollment means you can start any time you want, right?
Yeah, middle of the school year, quote unquote.
So I worked with inmates. So if an inmate got out in September, the other programs in the community, most other programs started in August, like a school semester. So if he got out in September, the first time he could even enroll would be mid-January when second semester started. So you lose all of that.
Yeah, the time.
The time and the motivation.
Yes.
And I teach anyone from 16 to my oldest was 82 years old.
Really?
Yeah.
All the way up to 82?
Yeah. So anybody who wants to better their education is welcome. And so this woman who was a student of mine at 82, she came in and she said, I just want to be a better reader. I was a housekeeper in the South my whole life. I moved up to Peoria, and she's like, I don't really want to work on my GED. I just want to be a better reader. Come on in, sister. I mean, like, that's what we want. We want to inspire people to value education.
So that just gives her the foundation.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll spark something more.
And she will model that for her family. And my grandma is still in school. Why? You can't drop out. Grandma's still in school, or great grandma's still in school.
I remember that because when my grandma, rest her soul, when she was alive and I was a youngster, she would have to go from cleaning to take a bus all the way down to go get her GED program, and then back to cleaning again. And that type of responsibility and dedication, consistency. That's why I'm like, I can't take a day off. Right. I feel bad when I take a day off. Because if she could do that off CTA, I could walk up the stairs.
Right. Yep.
This is interesting.
So it's and that's the other thing about adult ed, that it's so important because the adult students are modeling the value of education. So that's what we don't have in the United States. We don't have the value of education. Okay.
What do you mean by that?
So if you think about poorer countries who run circles around us as far as education, that's because they value education. It's important. We don't value it. When we just
business.
Yeah, it's a for-profit business. It's buying curriculum after curriculum to keep some, business very rich. You could give a damn about the students. You just want to change the program every 2 years, so you have to buy all of the parts to the program. It's never about the student. And so until we get to the point where people just value education for what it is, things cannot change to get any better. Money is not going to change it. We have more money than any country in the world, and we have a poor education system. So money isn't the answer, but that's the answer that's the low-hanging fruit. Everybody, we need more resources. No, you don't. You need to teach the value of education.
So what is the value of education?
Modeling that education is important. Modeling. The grandmother, 82, is modeling that education is important to the younger generations in her family. Your grandmother was modeling that education is important, and you knew how hard she tried to get that diploma, so you were inspired to try that hard to get the diploma.
Yeah.
And one of my students said the other night, which just warmed my heart. A student I had way back in the day as a little kid was in her 30s. She called me to sign up for GED because she saw some posts that I had with a recent graduate. Sent me a Facebook message, Miss Elliot, I'm ready. I'm like, yes, I've been after you for years, girl.
That's how I felt when I called. Same.
Except I didn't answer when you called. So
you owe me 4 podcasts, Eddie. just telling you.
So another student came in right after her and said, so-and-so signed up tonight. And this was a current student. And I said, yeah, I'm so excited. I said, I taught her as a little kid. And she says, the other student says, you know what? I'm proud of us. I'm proud of all of us. Look at us. We could be like everybody else, dropouts, but look at us. We're all here tonight trying to do better. And I thought, wow, that's the value of education. To be excited to learn, to be excited to succeed, excited for others to commit to their education. I mean, that's the value of education.
Would you say that's your why? To allow people to understand the value of education?
I guess if Ross says that's my why. I don't know. I don't really.
Because I remember I told you about this when we first had our initial conversation. I'm like, I'm going to ask you what your why is, Heddy. And you could not have an answer, but I'm going to pick and pry because I'm such a nerd about this. I like figuring out what makes people tick, or pushes their motivation, or fills their cup, or empowers their heart. Yeah. So what is your why?
I mean, that I don't know. Like, I don't know.
You don't leave this, go home and text me like, I hate you. You got me thinking tonight. Well, you're welcome.
So I am so excited. I mean, it never gets old. And my staff, they tease me all the time. A person can walk in that hasn't been there in 15 years and I'll say, oh my God, Ross, I'm glad you're back. You need to finish that math test. You got all the way to the end. And they're like, how do you know that? I mean, you've taught thousands of adult students. I just remember, I don't know.
The one subject I'm not good at, you called out. Did you discern this out of me, Heddy?
Maybe.
but that thing. Mm-hmm. So I'm all about bringing light to stories, right? I feel like you're just another collection in the story of Peoria, which is a good thing because there's a lot of great in the community. Yeah. What's something or some things you want the community to know about your story that they may not know?
I don't accept things that are illogical. I believe that the answers to life's problems are right in front of us at all times. And I never sway from my mission. I think those three things would sum up my entire being. If something, I remember I was getting really tough with one of my students, and he would laugh out loud if he heard me saying this. Hi, Martise. I'm saying it out loud.
You got welcome.
He was giving me every excuse in the book why he was doing poorly in one high school class after I had him for 3 years, not 2 years, 3 years. So he was a tough kid. And I said, that is so illogical. I'm not accepting that nonsense. It's so illogical. And he's like, what? I said, it's illogical. You did this same thing for 3 years in my class, had no problem with it. Now you have a problem with it. Yeah. I said, I'm not accepting it. It's illogical. Give me another excuse. Try again. But I can't, my mind, if I think it's illogical, I just can't accept it. And I'm bullheaded in that sense. I just won't accept it. I think a lot of people get away from their mission, and I think money is the driving factor to take people away from their mission. And if I could offer any advice to anybody, you have your mission, and you should always go back to your mission before making any decision. And many, many times in my career, I've been offered, okay, how about, we'll give you X amount of dollars for this grant, but you have to include, a cooking class for your adult students. I don't even know how to cook. I didn't ask my husband. I don't even know how to cook, and I don't cook at home, and I'm not interested in cooking, and no. So no, I'm not going to do it. Right? But it's taking it's going after the money, and no, I'm an expert in this area and this area only, and I don't want any extras to get me off of that task.
You want the stipulations to tie you down.
Yeah.
If you want to help, you're going to help.
Right. And so a lot of times people should go back and check, do some self-reflection. And I did. I remember being 40 years old, and I was on every board, every committee. And I thought, half the time I'm grabbing different notebooks. I didn't even know what meeting I'm walking into because I was on so many. And at one point I said, I'm writing a mission statement for myself, a personal mission statement just for me. And if it doesn't include education, caring for the poor, caring for the imprisoned, or caring for the elderly, I'm not doing it. So every board I was on, if it didn't fit my mission, I resigned from that board. And so every time I'm asked to be a part of something, if it doesn't fall into that mission, that the answer is an easy no, because I don't want to sway from that. I want all of my energy on earth to go into what I'm supposed to be doing.
There's only so much time a day.
Yep.
You got to use it all.
Yep.
Okay. You know, we've been talking for about an hour and a half now.
Okay, well, it's time to end.
Heddy, thank you so much for coming in. Before we end, I'm going to toss you an easy softball question.
Okay.
If there's anybody in the community that would like to get to know you, get more information, or help out, how can you get in contact with you through anything?
Okay. So the Peoria Park District, through the Friends of Proctor, or through Moonlight Coalition. You could call the Park District office and they can give you more information. My email is hedeliot, ELLIOTT, @hotmail.com. And if there's questions about teaching or things that have to do with the school district or just being charitable, please just reach out to me.
All right. That's been another episode of KZ1023's Community Beat. I'm Ross Martinez. Again, finally, got her. Heddy Elliot, a big name in the community. Thank you so much for everything.
You're
Great
welcome.
conversation. I'm going to reach out again. All right, we're out. Peace.